Good morning. Welcome and thank you for coming this morning. We are doing an in-service on fire prevention, home safety, and home fire safety. And we are here to explain more about these various areas. Today we have Mr. Terry Francis from the South Burlington from the fire department that's going to be discussing fire prevention. And we welcome you, Mr. Francis. It's good to have you here. We have Tim, who's going to be talking about fall home safety, and I will be talking about fall prevention. First, Mr. Francis is going to start.
Hi, folks.
Hello.
Thanks. I'm Terry Francis. I'm Deputy Chief with South Burlington Fire, and we're just hopefully here to review some of the stuff you already know, and then as it relates to your clients, and as you go into their houses and take a look at some of the hazards there, as you'll be talking about fall prevention and doing kind of a safety survey within the home, and then some of the things just to talk to the clients about. Any of you know what the #1 cause of fire in the country is right now? We're in the city of South Burlington. It's cooking fires. So we're going to spend a little time talking about how to make our clients a little more aware of their cooking habits, the clothes that they wear when they're cooking, and how to prevent some of these accidents. And most of the stuff is simple. And again, all we're really doing a lot of times is just reminding people of what they probably learned 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago when they were growing up, as fire prevention's been around for over 70 years now. So in cooking fires, what we're finding out is people are not used to the cooking appliance that they're using. They might be a new microwave to them. The microwave that they had before is old, and even though it may be 1,000 watts or whatever, it only generates about 850 watts now, so they go and get a new one. It's now generating 1,100 or 1,200 watts, which really means that things heat up quicker than people were used to. When I heated my coffee up this morning, I know on my microwave it takes, a minute and 25 seconds, but my microwave's 20 years old. If I get a new one, it's only going to take about a minute. So when you extrapolate this out into trying to heating up food or whatever, and you punch in a series of numbers to heat the food up, you think it's going to be 3 minutes, and it actually only takes a minute and a half. All of a sudden you get food that's gotten up to a temperature that's super hot, and the person goes to pull it out of the microwave and it's hot to handle, so they drop it and they end up injuring themselves. In the worst case scenario, they accidentally punch in the wrong numbers. Instead of punching in 3 minutes, they punch in 30 minutes, then go to do something else, and all of a sudden they come out and their microwave's on fire. And they're like, well, how'd that happen? There must be something wrong with the microwave. Well, there's nothing wrong, we just accidentally pushed in the wrong numbers. Fires can and do occur in microwaves. In fact, in some jurisdictions, in college towns, they don't allow microwaves in dorms anymore for that reason, because kids are constantly burning popcorn or other things that because they were just not used to it. So one of the things when we're looking at microwave safety, cooking safety in general, we do have to look at the microwave as being a source of competent heat to start a fire. Obviously, our stove is another one of those areas of concern. We find as we get older we tend to collect more things, and sometimes we don't always put those things where they belong. Sometimes we have animals in the house, and I'll pick on cats in particular because I've had a number of fires started by cats, because somebody's cooking something, the cat goes across the counter, kicks something into one of the burners, you don't happen to be there, and now you have a problem. So we need to start looking at what's on the cook stove, what's around the cook stove, and just trying to create a safety area. And that safety area also extends of having your grandchildren in the house, and little ones. Old people and young people are very susceptible to burns. You and I in our middle ages here have more fat pads around our skin and all. We burn. The burn injury is not as severe for us as it is with an elder or with a kid. So one of the things that I love having my grandchildren over to cook, but I set up a safety zone, and they have to be at least 7 years old in order to be at the cooktop to cook with me, and they're only allowed to do certain things. So when we set up that safety zone, it can work for combustibles, papers, that kind of stuff, or your grandchildren around. We like to have a 3-foot area all the way around the stove that's clear. So in my house, that exclusion zone when we're cooking, when the little kids are around, is actually about 8 feet by about 4 feet. That when we're cooking, they can't be in those areas. And it's to prevent those issues of, I have a boiling pot, I need to go drain the water off, and now the 4-year-old is right at a height that I can't see her, and I don't want to ever dump that hot water onto that child because that'll cause a pretty significant scald injury. While we're talking about appliances and that type of thing, we also need to look at our pots and pans. Sometimes we have pots and pans that we've had forever. Maybe they have some sentimental value to us, or maybe we think, there's only 1 or 2 of us here, I really don't need to worry about that pot that has the loose handle that's been loose for the last 20 years. You know, Christmas time comes around, birthdays come around, it's okay to start asking for new pots and pans. But we have had individuals, elders, injured when the pot that they've had for 30 years, it's now the handle's worn down, the metal's been expanded, the Baker light handle, which normally wouldn't cause you to be burned, is cracked, and they go to pick something up and all of a sudden they dump whatever, it might be hot grease or hot water or hot food, onto themselves, or worse, it comes onto the burners, and if it's grease laden, meaning we're frying something, now we have a fire. So those are all considerations that we don't often think about when we go into somebody's house. But if you're there, just take a quick look at what the pots and pans look like in the house. It may be as simple as just getting a screwdriver out and tightening the handle up a little bit. But those are the subtle things that you can do to help keep your clients even safer. The other thing is, if you're around and the client's cooking food for you, or you're watching the person cook their food, take a look at the clothing that they wear. We don't want clothing that's loose. My mother is 93 years old. She's sharp as a tack, but we finally broke her of the habit of wearing her favorite long sleeve, very floppy robe when she's preparing her morning meal. And you know why we finally, and it's flannel, it's a fleece, it's a poly fleece, so it's very warm, but it's also very flammable. And we finally able to get her to change to something that was not nearly as combustible, not nearly as floppy, and doesn't come across in close proximity to the gas burner in her gas stove. So take a look at that, and maybe we need to help adjust them, or maybe even get them, if it's a favorite thing and they don't want to change it, maybe we use something like a hairband or something like that to get that sleeve of the predominant hand up away from the fire, so that we don't, so that we have a burn injury because of that. Again, remembering that elders and little kids burn more. The burn injury to those people is much more significant and much more life-threatening than it is to you and I. We forget that as we grew up, most of us have learned stop, drop, and roll. And as we age, and as we have experience, life experience, I don't have to do stop, drop, and roll, because I know if I take a towel and I hit it with a towel, it's going to go out, because I've had 15 or 20 experiences like this in my life. Well, as we age, we're not nearly as flexible or as quick as we used to be, and we've actually had some very significant injuries where an individual has caught their clothing on fire, thought that they could get to the kitchen sink in time, and put the fire out. Well, what happened is that they didn't have the flexibility they needed to get the robe off in a hurry, get to the water, fumbling to find the pan. In the meantime, they're getting injured the whole time, which of course causes a panic situation. So prevention is key to these things. We're not as agile as we used to be as we age, which is just the way it is. The idea is to be the last one standing, right? So as we age, we have to relearn some of the things that we have learned when we were very young, or perhaps some of our grandchildren or children learned when they were in school. And that's, stop, drop, and roll still works. Oh, I'll never get up. Oh, I'll break something. Well, that's okay. You'll heal a lot quicker from a broken bone than you will from a burn injury. Burn injuries involve long time hospitalizations, grafting. There's a huge infection rate with burns, and you don't have to, yes, a broken bone's a horrible thing, but if I was going to pick between the two, I'll take the broken bone over the burn, thank you very much. So that stop, drop, and roll is still appropriate for adults. So if we use a little bit of prevention in the home of taking a look at our pots and pans, making sure the clothing that we're wearing while we're at the stove is appropriate, making sure that we have a safety zone set up around our stove and our microwaves so that we don't have an animal in the way, or if our grandchildren are visiting, that they're out of the way so that we don't injure them or cause them an injury back to ourselves, because we realize with that pot that, oh my God, the grandchild is there, I got to pull it away, and then I splash that hot material on me, that's really what we're doing. So it's an ounce of prevention is well worth it, and it's just heightening our state of awareness is really what it is. Other thing that we just want to talk about real quickly is smoke and carbon monoxide detection in the home. If you're in the house, you may actually get complaints from your client about, oh, you know, that stupid smoke alarm, I took it off because it's always going off. Well, question the person a little bit more, because chances are there's a couple of things happening. One, it may be a cue that they're burning food more often because perhaps they're getting forgetful, and that could be a clue to something else that's going on physiologically with them. The other thing is that we may actually have a detector that's old and now it's starting to become faulty. Smoke alarms are only good for 10 years. Some of us, I was in a house yesterday, the smoke detector was 25 years old, and it didn't work until you test the button, it would make a weak beep, and then it would stop working. Well, when we're most vulnerable when we're asleep. You're not going to smell a fire, you're not going to hear a fire. In fact, when you go to sleep, the first sense that goes to sleep, if you will, is your nose. The last thing to go to sleep is your ears, or stop functioning as clearly. So people cannot rely on their senses. Fires burn differently than they burned 40 years ago, and that's because of the materials that we have in our houses. Once upon a time, when I was first started in the fire service 40 years ago, we told people you had 6 minutes to get out of your house. Well, now we only have 2. What's happened? Has fires changed? Not really. Fire is fire. It's a known commodity to us. But what have we put in our houses in the last 40 years? We put a lot of synthetics in them. Synthetics that give off deadly gases. They burn much quicker, much hotter than the wool that we had in our house and stuffing in our furniture and all that, 40 years ago. So as a result of that, we need to make sure that people are waking up soon enough. And in the city of South Burlington, one of the changes in the ordinances that we've had is that every bedroom has to have a smoke alarm now, and it has to be interconnected to all of the other detectors in the house. Now, if we're in a condominium or an apartment building, they have to be hardwired. If we're in a single-family home, we can actually use the new wireless technology to create that. The other thing is, when we're checking this out, if we have a large bedroom, we don't really, in an elder's house, we really don't want the smoke detector all the way over at the door. We want that smoke detector close to the bed as we can, because older people don't hear as well as they used to hear. The younger generation, by the way, is catching up to us very quickly because of loud music, but the elderly in particular, their hearing tends to degrade over time, and we need to make sure that that sound pressure is enough to wake them up. We know from studies that we need to have at least 70 decibels of sound at a pillow to wake somebody up, the average person, if you will. Okay. When the smoke detector is 12 or 14 feet away, that sound pressure coming out of the smoke alarm at 85 decibels doesn't create 70 at the pillow and not in time to wake you up. If you have a client who's hard of hearing, we actually have newer technologies now that will actually vibrate the bed to help wake them up. That's a good technology to investigate. It's a little more expensive, but if you only have to do the one bedroom that the people are sleeping in, it's certainly worth that investment. So those are some of the things as we're looking at our clients and our clients' homes to kind of just take an overall look at, test them if you have to. Make sure if they have a detector that's over 10 years old, they need to get a new one. Carbon monoxide is something that we just started talking about within the last 10 or 15 years. It's been around for a long time. But carbon monoxide is a odorless, colorless, tasteless gas. You can't see, taste, or hear it, okay? And it's lethal. It will kill you. And unfortunately, we've had cases where people have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. CO is its chemical name, and those deaths are preventable, and those injuries are preventable. Again, the very young and the very old are more susceptible to carbon monoxide poisoning than the average individual, the person that's 55 or 60. So those people being more at risk, we need to make sure that those detection pieces are in there. By law, a CO detector is required on every level of the house. So if we have a basement, first and second floor, we need 3 of them. In the city of South Burlington, again, they need to be interconnected, so if something happens in the basement and you're asleep on the second floor, you're alerted to the fact that there's dangerous levels of carbon monoxide in your house. Symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning was very much like the flu. So we need to kind of ask people, when we're talking to them, they say, I feel kind of crummy, whatever, especially during heating season. Okay, well, fine, did this come on suddenly, or, well, I just haven't, the last few days I just haven't had a lot of energy, and they're not running fevers, but they're just feeling lethargic and tired and stuff. So the question question in my mind always is there some sort of a low-level CO event going on, because maybe I have a blocked vent, maybe my heating system isn't running correctly, and that's a question again to ask the client is, heating systems it's recommended the heating systems are inspected by a qualified person at least every 2 years. So as we do kind of a home safety checklist, we can ask that question, and people will say, oh, that costs a lot of money. Well, statistics have shown us, and reports have shown us, that if we maintain our heating system, it actually costs us less to heat our house because the furnaces are running more efficiently. So there's a spin-off, there's a cash savings to us. Yes, you might have to pay $150 for that technician to come in, but we'll probably save that in oil or in natural gas or propane because the systems are now running more efficiently, and we know that they're not spilling carbon monoxide into the house. So there is a difference when you're talking to your clients and they say, oh, that detector just goes off sometimes. So a follow-up question should always be, when you say it goes off, it's not going off now, how does it go off? What does it sound like? What is it doing? And if they say, well, it goes off, it beeps, like every night, it just beeps. For no reason, it just beeps once and scares the heck out of me, and then I can't get back to sleep or whatever, and then it'll beep again. Well, the detector is telling you one of two things. It's telling you it's either dirty or that it needs to have its battery changed. Now, we're going to be talking about fall prevention here in a little bit. I don't recommend that an 80-year-old person get up on a ladder and change the batteries out, okay? We have neighbors and friends that certainly can help that. And you know what? Most of the time our neighbors and friends will help if you ask, but sometimes as we grow older, we want to maintain our independence. So I can do that, that's fine, So we just need to be mindful of that and encourage the client to say it's all right to ask your neighbor to come over and get up on a ladder, not a chair, to change out the battery in the smoke alarms. Smoke alarms should be changed. Smoke alarm batteries, recommendation is every 6 months, at a minimum once a year. And again, scheduling that with a bunch of neighbors perhaps to have a battery changing party. I've known ladies who have had tea having a battery changing party for their smoke and CO detectors. I thought that was great. It was a social event and something good happened, and they brought in a younger neighbor who was able to do all that work. So it was good thinking on their part. I thought that was a good adaptation for them. Smoke alarms and COs, when they're activated, actually the sound is the same. The tone of the sound is the same. What's different is the beeps. A smoke alarm will beep 3 times and pause, and then beep 3 times again. A carbon monoxide detector will beep 4 times and pause, and then beep 4 times again. I don't know about you, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's confusing to me. So what we tell people is, if your smoke detector goes off in the middle of the night, beeps 3 times, stops, beeps 3 times, stops. That'll happen about every 10 to 12 seconds. Or your CO detector goes off, pick up the phone, call 911, we'll come over and we'll check it out. We don't mind. That's what we're here for. We'd rather come over and find out that it's nothing than have you ignore it for 2 or 3 days and suddenly end up in the intensive care unit because you get carbon monoxide poisoning because you weren't paying attention to what the detection was telling you. And as I've said to the other group, I've been in this business a long time, 40 years. And I will tell you, of the tens of thousands of people that I've been to for either fires or emergencies, I've never seen anybody die of embarrassment, but I've seen an awful lot of people die because they didn't want to call for help. And that's silly. That's absolutely silly. We don't mind. The men and women of the fire service, we knew what we signed ourselves up for, and that includes getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because your smoke detector's making noise. Your neighbors won't care that there's a big fire truck in front of your house. Okay, they won't really care. They'll be more concerned, and we have that opportunity to educate them about some of the challenges within their own house. While it's a good thing to have a fire extinguisher in your house, if you're not agile enough to use one, we recommend that you just leave the house and call 911. Everything in the house can be replaced, you can't be. And we've had some elders that have tried to put the fire out. They've taken, pans of burning grease or whatever, try to put it in the kitchen, put water on it, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do, because then it burns explosively. Suddenly you have a big fireball and you don't understand why. It was just a little pan fire. Pan fires can be taken care of easily with a lid, baking soda, rather than trying to find your fire extinguisher. I dare to say most of us can't find the fire extinguisher in our house if we have one, because we tend to tuck it away. We always recommend, if there's a fire extinguisher in your house, have it out in the open where you can see it and use it right away. And taking the time to learn about fire extinguishers, there's great things online that teach you about that. There's an acronym called PASS, which is pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the handle, and sweep back and forth. That's the acronym that we use for that, which is fine for you folks as care providers. Might be a little more difficult for my 93-year-old mother, because she may not have the strength to hold the fire extinguisher up and hold it, and now she's nervous, and she's not accurate with her aim at the fire. So if you're not familiar with them, during a fire is not the time to practice. So at that point, it's okay to just say, okay, I'm out of here, close the door, I'm calling 911, the fire department will come and take care of it. That also leads me into, if your smoke alarms go off in the middle of the night, and you wake up and you do find that there's smoke in your house, we have to go back to what our children and grandchildren are learning, which is the exit drill in the home, and that's get down, get low, get out. Okay, so if you have a bad hip or bad shoulders or whatever, is it really easy to get down like that and crawl out like you're 10 years old? It's not. It
won't be pretty.
It won't be pretty, but you know what? It's okay if it's not pretty. If you can get down and you're mobile enough to crawl, that's the best way to do it. But sometimes we have to adapt to that, and maybe it's what we're doing is we're just kind of bending over at the waist and trying to stay below the smoke level. We prefer you to be down on the ground on your hands and knees, the way the firefighters are going to enter your house. But that's not always practical as we age and we get a little stiffer and we're not nearly as agile as we used to be. So let's think about some adaptations that will work for that. And maybe it's just we're kind of bending over at the waist, staying down low, getting our heads down below the smoke level, and exiting the house. What we don't want people to do, and what most adults do, is the smoke detector goes off. Oh my God, the smoke detector's going off. And the first thing they do is they get up and stand up. And every fire victim I have ever seen has done the same thing. They've stood up into the smoke, took 2 breaths, took 2 steps, and they were dead.
Oh.
Bad news. That's preventable. The smoke detector did its job to wake you up. Your job is to react appropriately, which is stay down low below the level of the smoke. Just that simple. You would think it would be pretty quick, but again, we've had all of these experiences, 50, 60, 70 years of our life, is that, oh, it's just a false alarm. Well, the thing is that fire only gives you one chance. In your lifetime, you will need the fire department for an EMS call statistically 6 times in your life. In your lifetime, you will need a fire department intervention twice. So we're not afraid to come to your house and help you if you're hurt. But statistically, those are and everybody thinks the same way. It's not going to be me. And as adults, we need to practice what we preach. We need to be prepared for any kind of an emergency, and we need to make sure that we share that information with our loved ones so they're equally prepared. I would imagine out of this group today, when we go home, you might have some discussions with your family members about, we had the firefighter came into here today, talk to us a little about this, and then we need to talk about this, and in some cases we need to practice this. If you've never done exit drill in the home, that the idea is to get down below the smoke, get to an exit, get out, and get to a meeting spot. Go to a neighbor's house, make a phone call. It's not run back and forth looking for Fluffy the cat. Okay, Fluffy the cat is not going to come to you if there's smoke in your house. Cats hide. Dogs run. Cats hide. Okay, don't worry about Fluffy. Fluffy will bury himself someplace. And my experience with cats and fires, and unless the room is demolished by fire, the cats are usually fine. Because why? Because they're built low to the ground, where we're supposed to be. So they're out of the smoke. So don't think about possessions. Don't worry about your animals. That'll be the firefighter's responsibilities. If you get out of the house quickly and make that call to 911, the fire department generally can be there in about 8 minutes. In the city of South Burlington, it's about 3.5 to 4 minutes. City of Burlington, it's under 3 minutes, and that's just because of where the fire stations are. Now, where I live, I have a wonderful fire department. very dedicated group of men and women, but where I live, it's 12 minutes for the fire department to get to me. So I know very well that what my plan is going to be, and I really don't care about the house. I built the house, I can build a new one. All of the stuff in there I can replace. The thing I can't replace is my wife and I. It took me it's taken her that long to train me. I don't think she wants to lose me either, but you never know. But that being said, there's nothing in that house that can't be replaced. That's really what it comes down to. You're the important thing. Get out of the house, let the fire department come and deal with the problem. Never seen anybody die of embarrassment, but I've sure seen a lot of people die from stupidity, frankly. I'll be that blunt. So, when we have our grandchildren over, guess what? Practice the exit drill in the home, and you'll be the supervisor. As the adult, you'll be the supervisor. What we recommend with exit drills in the home, when the grandchildren are over there, is that we start during daylight time, so that we don't scare the little ones. I have 2 grandchildren, one of them's 2, and the other one's 5. They know the exit drill in the home better than I do. And guess what? They're a heck of a lot quicker than I am in doing the drill. But they understand that that detector goes off. Oh, it's a drill time to get out of the house. And they do it without even thinking. And what a gift that you're giving to those children. If you think about it, that's a life gift. If those children know how to react to fire, they know stop, drop, and roll. You're practicing that with them. You're practicing the exit drill in the home. That child should remember that their entire life. I used to go over to Grandpa's house, and Grandpa was a firefighter, and we used to do stop, drop, and roll, made a game out of it. Yeah, we had to do exit drill in the home, but, and God forbid, sometime in their life they may actually need to know that. When we're talking, we can't just talk about it, we have to practice it. I can teach my granddaughter how to throw a curveball, the best of any of them. But if she never practices it, she's never going to learn how to throw a curveball. Well, these life skills are the same way. Safe cooking. Knowing what to do when the smoke alarms go off. Get down, get low, get out. That exit drill in the home. Where to go to my meeting place. How to call 911. Those grandchildren might actually be calling 911 for you. So you can take your cell phone or practice phone or whatever and teach them how to call 911 and where Grandma and Grandpa's house is. What a concept, And they could actually be responsible for help you in an emergency. That's a great gift. So those are just a couple things to think about. I just wanted to bring up to the group today, so thank you for listening to me prattle on here. And we'll turn it over to folks that are going to talk about home safety and fall prevention. Any folks have any questions?
We recently had smoke detectors and carbon detectors put in the house. And I noticed one of them went off and it showed red. Mm-hmm. Mine in my bedroom showed green. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, I think we gotta push the button and reset it.
Well, the red will tell you that that's the detector going off. That's what it's
after after everything's taken care of, it still showed red. So
yep. Did you push the button to reset it?
Nobody said to do that. Yeah. I just happened to notice that.
Yeah. So you bring up a very good point. Is that all of these detectors come with manufacturer's instructions, and they may tell you that you have to reset them depending on the brand that you're using. So making sure that you read that very fine print that's hard to read.
We had it put in by an electrician.
He didn't leave any paperwork. Kick him in the shins.
Can't find it. Yeah.
But all of these devices do come with manufacturer's recommendations and instructions about cleaning them, and if you have to reset the device, so that's fine. But with the electrician, calling them back and saying, hey, by the way, where are my instructions for the smoke and CO detectors? Because I need to read up on them a little bit. And
okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely do that. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing it up. Any other questions for folks?
I just have
yes,
one.
ma'am.
Is there a state law that states every home?
Yes, for detection. Yes, there is. And for
you were talking about South Burlington. I was just wondering.
Sure, for the state there is, and there's actually a matrix that talks about the age of the house and where the smoke alarms have to be. I will be very honest with you, it's very confusing. I understand why the legislature put it together that way. I get why they did it. Fortunately, here in the city of South Burlington, the city council looked at it and said, this is really confusing, we need to simplify it. And we simplified it to the highest standard because, as any municipality would feel, their citizens are very, very important to them, and we want to provide them with the greatest level of safety that we can relative to costs. I mean, if I was king of the world, every building would be sprinkled, including single-family homes. Everybody would have detection systems that are tied to some sort of a home security system. The truth of the matter is not all of us can afford that. There's a limited number of us that can afford that. But I'm not king of the world, and I understand how the legislative system has looked at it. And I will say that the Vermont legislature has been very receptive to what the fire service recommendations are, and they actually deserve a lot of credit for that. Not all states will listen to the fire service the way our legislators have, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. So, great question. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you for having me today. Hopefully we passed on some pearls of information and things to think about, and sometimes you're advocates for your clients. More than sometimes, lots of times you're advocates for your clients. So your interaction with them and your ability to influence some of their decisions in a positive way is very important. So thanks for having me here today.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Get unhooked here, I'll be all set.
Thank you again.
Have a fire safe day, folks.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Alan had heard that I was doing this guide to a fall safe home, and I have been going around to the different senior centers throughout Vermont and also New Hampshire. And it's very simplistic, and I had just done some basic research on the web from what other people had put together and compiled like the key points to simplify it so that when I do go to speak at a senior center, it's easy for them to comprehend. I also open it up as an engaging conversation with them where I'm not just talking. So I encourage the same thing for you to add in as we're going along, because that's the way it was originally designed to be. And I've actually learned a lot by going out and doing these presentations, and sometimes it's as little as 3 or 4 people, and up to 75 was like the largest group that I had done in White River Junction. And people have brought things to my attention, which I've actually added into this very simple list. And I'll just share the one big one that I forgot, and Deputy Chief Francis had mentioned, was our pets. And one of our pets can easily be a hazard to us. As much as we love them, sometimes they do get underfoot. And so that was just one good example that was brought to my attention, and all the research I had done on the web, not once was it mentioned about your pets. So I will share a copy of this with you if you'd like to take it when we leave, and we will make it available for everyone who is viewing this on the web. It'll be in a PDF file attached to the TLC Academy. So once again, this is just a simple guide that was put together to help people understand how to have a fall safe home. And the definition of a fall safe home is one that has been designed and has been gone through to eliminate any hazards that are potential in the home or around the home. Every year, 1 in 3 adults, men and women over the age of 65, will have a fall. Some of these falls are very easy falls, and they're recoverable. Broken hips are recoverable, but unfortunately they do leave a lasting impression for the future years to come. And actually some falls can be deadly for seniors as well. So what we're looking at is preventing those numbers from being what they currently are. Falls in general, whether you're young or old, are detrimental. I know myself, I've fallen in my house standing on a chair trying to replace something that I shouldn't have been standing on a chair trying to replace. I fell, cracked a couple of ribs. I should have known better. We put up gates for our babies and our children in our home around stairs and areas that we feel that are hazardous to them. So we have to look at this throughout our life, not only in our senior years, but also our adult years, and we do it for our children, so it carries through. So a lot of this is just common sense, and this is just a simple way of evaluating our homes and having a preventable fall from happening. Looking at your home initially, we look at the different seasons and what's going on. And each of the seasons poses a different issue for us. We look at our driveways, our walkways, and what ends up happening throughout the seasons here in Vermont. So we have everything from in the summertime when we may potentially have that garden hose out to wash our automobile, water our flowers or plants or our garden, hose off your sidewalk, whatever it is. If you don't wind it up, that hose is a trip hazard. Not in the sense that you're going to get it hooked on your foot, but as much as it's going to roll under your foot. So making sure that your walkway is clear of a hose is important. Your gardening tools that you may have, whether it's just a little hoe or spade that you're using, hand tools, ornaments that you may place in your lawn, plants that you may put on your steps to decorate the appearance of your home. All these little things that we do to enhance our life or maintain our property are potential hazards for any of us. So we want to make sure that in the summertime we're looking at those types of items. The fall months, we look at the falling of the leaves that happen. We have wind, which in turn knocks down branches. Those little branches might be those little twigs that are the size of the pencil. Once again, they roll under your foot quite easily. If they're buried beneath the leaves, it hides and conceals those. Also, the leaves will conceal that trip hazard in your sidewalk where one of your sidewalk planks is up higher than the other and your toe can catch it if you do not see it beneath your leaves. We also have crab apples, blossoms that will fall. All those things create hazards or hide things that are happening within your sidewalks. So I always recommend for those times of the year, keep a broom handy and you can easily just sweep it to the side. You don't have to pick it up, but just keep your walkway clear. The winter months is just an ongoing battle of what we have to do to maintain. We have shoveling, we have ice that are going to be an ongoing battle. Not saying that we need to have our seniors out there shoveling, but even once again try to sweep it off to the side, have a bucket of salt available, or even sand just to create some friction on that surface so that it's more secure for them. And the spring months kind of resemble much of the summer months with the blossoming. We have a lot of flowering things throughout the summer months as things are growing, and it all happens at various times through the year. So the idea is outside your home, plan ahead, avoid these challenges by keeping your walkways clear, preparing yourself to have that broom on your front steps, a bucket of sand or salt for the winter months, to wipe away the blossoms, the leaves, whatever may happen to come across the path to your car, the common places that you walk to. And at night, especially during the fall months when our daylight hours are shorter, make sure that your outside light works. And if you are leaving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the winter or fall months, turn your light on before you leave. Yes, it will be burning for a few hours, maybe before you get back home, but when you get back home, you're assured that your pathway will be lit. Unless you have one that automatically comes on with motion when you pull in your driveway, that's great, or an automated one that comes on at dusk. Inside the home, Vermont is a unique place, in New Hampshire as well, where people like to gather in the kitchen. And kitchens are one of those places that we have to look at closely. We'll be talking about that. Our bathrooms and our common areas that we're walking. This is a common thread throughout all of our rooms that we're going to be talking about. Keeping our pathways clear. I know we've been into a number of homes and we've seen where there may be some clutter or maybe they're spotless. But keeping the pathways clear from papers, boxes, cups, dishes. It's easy to set something down on the side. Cords, extension cords that may be running a fan or a heater, which there's issues around that as well, and we have to be observant on. Clothing, people may throw a sweater or blanket, something on the ground next to their chair. So making sure that there is no clutter in the walkways that we are traveling in. More commonly used items throughout any of the rooms that we're in, put them in a easily reachable place. Something that you don't have to bend down for, something that you don't have to reach up for. So laundry room is a good example. Keeping your laundry detergent at a level that you can get without bending or kneeling for. In the kitchen, same thing. Your spices, things that you know you're going to use, your frying pans. I know in my kitchen, pots and pans are down low, dishes are up high, spices are on a spice rack that you're trying to look through to see. So we want to make sure that we draw these things that we use more frequently closer to us. And we're going to be looking at handrails in the rooms that it's appropriate for, mostly the bathrooms and our entrances and our stairwells. Making sure that not only do we have those handrails in place, but they are actually properly installed, because if they're not properly installed and they're just put into the sheetrock or a thin, paneling wall, and you do fall, it's going to come down with you. So we want to make sure that they're anchored properly. And runners, we all have runners, whether it's in the entryway or in a hallway or a kitchen mat, making sure that it's the appropriate runner. And unfortunately sometimes the appropriate runners do cost a little bit more, but it's a lot cheaper than spending the time in the hospital with an injury. Making sure that they're skid resistant, they have a rubber backing, that they're heavy enough, and that they're appropriately placed. We're going to look at our bathrooms. A few things to keep in mind is having an adjustable shower head, one that's on the flexible cord, installed. It's a pretty simple thing to do. Removing the old shower head and placing that on. It can hook up top where the original one did, and a lot of them come with an additional suction cup or a 3M stick piece that will allow you to have an additional hanger down low. So that way if you're using a bath chair, that you have that availability to have the shower head close to you. And then in addition, that if somebody else doesn't always want to take a shower in a bath chair, that they can always put it in the other clip up top. That's important for many reasons, because if someone is using a bath chair, it's not very convenient for them to have the shower head blasting in a level that's not really hitting them or always cumbersome for them. Placing nod skid strips in the bottom of our tub if you're still showering standing up. They come in a variety of patterns: butterflies, flowers, suns, turtles, or just some simple adhesive strips with like a little sandpaper backing or surface on them. Making sure that our shower curtain is properly installed is important. You ask why that is. If you fall, you're going to reach for something. No matter where you're falling, you're always going to reach for something. If you're in the middle of the walkway and you fall, you're going to reach for something. Natural instinct. That curtain could potentially prevent you from falling all the way down if it was properly installed, not with a tension rod, but anchored into the wall. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. So, not that it's gonna support you, but it could certainly potentially help you catch your balance. So I'm not suggesting it as a safety measure, but just as an additional piece of support. The liquid soap dispensers that you can adhere to the inside of your bathroom wall, and you can put in your conditioner and your facial soap in liquid form, your shampoo, your body wash, and you just press the little button and it squirts into your hand. That's a nice item to add into your bathroom. You drop the bar of soap on the floor, you have to bend down, potential slipping and falling. Your shampoo bottle falls off the ledge, whether it's at this height or down at the tub basin height. It just keeps everything in one general location for you to be able to easily reach. In the bathroom, we look at the water temperature, making sure that it's properly adjusted so it's not hot. How does that come into fall safety? If it's too hot, you're going to jump, you're going to move quick, there's going to be a reaction, another potential for falling. The appropriate is 120 degrees or lower. And those grab rails that we're talking about, having them in place, in the bathroom, in the shower stall, around the toilet, anywhere that you would be standing trying to get dressed in the bathroom would be appropriate to have. And once again, use only non-skid mats in the bathroom. You should have a mat in the bathroom for certain, because the linoleum and just bare feet in water is slippery. So you should have a mat. It is appropriate to have a mat in there, but having the appropriate mat in place is important. So back to the beloved kitchen. Once again, those frequently used items, keeping them in a place that is easily accessible for you to reach. We want to avoid using step stools, and if we must use a step stool, we should consider getting one that actually has the rails on them. You can go online, you can see a variety of types that are out there. They have a little base stool with a handle on it. Don't really recommend that so much. It does have a handle, and that's not what I'm trying to encourage you to look at. But there are ones that are 1 or 2 steps up, and they're like a 6-inch step up, and they have a rail around the top. And it's a simple waist-high rail, so that way if you do pull it up to your counter, you have a sufficient platform to stand on. You have a rail to hold on to as you reach for something in that cupboard. A lot of these older homes, when they were built, a lot of the cupboards are quite tall, and you can't ever reach those things, but you are going to want them at some point in time, and somebody potentially will not be there to get them for you, and you're determined to get them yourself. As Deputy Chief Francis says, you want to remain having your independence. You're going to be doing those things that you potentially will be putting yourself into hazard. One of the great things to put in a cupboard is a Lazy Susan, and that's perfect for all those spices that you have, because it's deep, you can spin it around, and everything that you need keeps coming to the front as you need it. It's a great thing to have. You can use that even in your canning cupboards, where if you put your items on that shelf, you don't have to worry about digging through. Everyone's cupboards are a different shape. There's some really neat ones that you can find online that are actually like a pull-out cupboard as well, and you can put your things on. Just any of those items, they were designed for a reason, and they're to make our lives more convenient and safer at that. We want to make sure that in the kitchen that if we're cooking, that we keep all flammable items away from the stove. We may have grease, butter, that can of spray that you just put down on your pan to stop things from sticking. If you've used those things, put them away, move them further away from the stove, regardless if it's a gas cooktop or an electric. We want to make sure that we keep anything flammable away. Cooking, those old favorite oven mitts that you have, that was your grandmother's or your mother's, they're beautiful, they're sentimental. Keep them in the drawer, keep them, but buy new ones, because the padding may have been gone. You may be getting thin. Buy some new mitts, so that when you are reaching in there and grabbing, that you have your hand protected properly. And I know myself, there are a few that are sentimental. You hold on to them because they're special, but you will get burned with them. We're looking at checking the dates of all the goods in our refrigerator and in our cupboards. And you'd be quite surprised if you go into your own cupboards, and I do this frequently myself, and it buffoons me how I often miss some things, but look at the dates on the canned goods, the box goods that you have in your cupboards, and you have to look really closely for those dates, because it is a very small print, and it's generally you need glasses or magnifying glass, but it is on there for the most part.
And if it's not, it's too old.
It's
Throw
too
it
old.
away.
Very old.
My wife's philosophy is that if there is not a date on it, throw it away.
Spices sometimes, I think, do not have dates because you can keep them forever.
Certain spices you can keep for a long period of time. But check on it, because generally if it's gotten hard in your cupboard, and you have to bang it to loosen it up, it's probably time to chuck it. So, and the same thing goes in your refrigerator. Think about those perishable things. Obviously, when you open up the fridge and you look at that lettuce that's all wilted and drooped, you know it's time to chuck it. Your tomatoes, those are pretty easy. Your seafood salad, your macaroni salads that you made, all those mayonnaise products, you want to make sure that you throw away those things. Don't stretch it out. It's not worth getting sick and ending up with a trip to the hospital. So go through, check your dates, not only in your cupboard, but in your refrigerator as well. One thing that somebody had mentioned at one of the groups was having a grab stick. They like their grab sticks. It is a good idea, and I think you might know what I'm talking about, the little hand grab sticks and the little claws. They're called alligators. They've got a variety of names. They are useful. If you do drop something, it makes it easy for you to grab it without having to fully bend over. Reach in and grab something that may be a little bit too far for you. Some people might sit in a chair and are able to turn a light on or off with it. So that was something somebody had brought to my attention, is having one of those gifted to you, or go get one yourself. Keeping your dishes and your countertops clean. That's just general healthy habits that we all should have. But sometimes as we get older, we may not wash our dishes properly. We may not use hot water to wash our dishes. We may not do as good of a job as we think we've been doing washing our silverware or cups. But making sure that those surfaces are clean, because once again, just like the food products that are in our refrigerator, you can still get sick from dirty surfaces. When plugging in appliances, always use caution. Making sure that if you're plugging in something, that you're not near a sink, that you're not standing on a damp, wet floor. Shock hazards are there, especially with older appliances that aren't replaced. So we want to look at that, and also making sure that the outlets aren't overloaded. A lot of times you'll see somebody that has one of those big block outlet, takes 2 outlets and makes 8 or 6, something crazy like that. Maybe not such a good idea, and I would, if Chief Francis was still here, would say he'd agree with that. Probably appropriate for certain conditions, but definitely not in the kitchen.
I have one place that has a strip like this. No individual. You just plug in the whole strip.
The whole
I
strip.
just use it for the vacuum.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy things out there. And I always tell everyone, remember, safety starts with you. So if you're the only one in the house, share that with the clients, your family, whoever. It starts with you, because there's no one else there when you're alone to say, don't do it. So if you have to think about what you're doing is a potential hazard, don't do it. Okay. Some more things to think about, and some of these will cross over with what Chief Francis was talking about. Changing your smoke detector batteries. Our fire departments are good. They put out signs on their billboards saying it's time to change your smoke detector batteries again. We see advertisements on television that help remind us to do this. It is there for our safety. Having GFCIs, installed in the appropriate places, which would be basements, kitchens, and bathrooms, and garages.
What do those initials stand for?
They're the ground fault circuit outlets, and it is code that it's supposed to be in those areas. So if you plugged in an item that was being used and you were to come into contact with water, or it shorted out, it shuts the power off just like that. So it's a preventable injury from happening. A lot of homes, new homes, homes that have been sold, they're up to date, but some of these older homes that people are living in may not necessarily be updated. And like Chief Francis said, these codes have been set in place not to make people spend money on things that are not necessary, but they're there for their safety, to prevent them from injury or death. So we want to make sure that we try to follow those as much as we can. And I will share that, there are different programs that are out there that you can go to. Eldercare.gov is a resource. Look to your community. you'd be surprised where you can actually find resources available. Your local agency on aging, the United Way has a 211 program. Just like you can dial 911 for emergency services, you can dial 211, and you can get information, legal advice. You can call and say, I need assistance with fuel, I need assistance with food. So it's a good resource. Avoid going in your basements. That's a big one. Reason why I always bring this up is because most generally people don't have telephones in your basement. So if you go down in your basement and you fall, whether you're heading down the stairs or heading up the stairs, or while you're in the basement, you're probably going to be there for a while, because there's no way for you to contact anyone. No phones nearby. Basements are just a dangerous place in general for the most part, because they're not generally clutter-free or well kept up. So try to watch your clients and make it a conscious note of that. Wearing sturdy shoes that are laced. If they're laced, they're not going to slip on your feet so much, so you have a good grasp. And also have shoes that have the non-skid or non-slip soles on them. I always mention avoid burning candles for the obvious reasons. We forget that they're burning, and we start cooking, or we start going outside in the garden, or we leave, or the cat. Exactly. Avoid burning candles, and there's a lot of great, if you burn a candle for the smell, there's a lot of great alternatives out there, from potpourris to these wax candles. Still a candle, that word is there, but it's just a heat lamp or bulb, a nightlight bulb that warms it up and it creates a nice smell. So if it's the smell you're looking for, there's some other solutions. Using that portable phone or adding additional phones into your home, meaning having an additional outlet put in, making sure that you have a phone in the places that you're commonly spending time, the kitchen, the living room, your bedrooms, so that way if you do fall, you have a greater opportunity to be able to call somebody for help. In that same sense, consider purchasing a Life Alert button or asking a family member for it as a gift. It's a good way to help somebody who's living alone, or even living with somebody, two elder people, to get some help there for whatever the emergency may be. Post important phone numbers on your refrigerator. Important phone numbers, your doctor, your children, emergency contact people, and make it large enough so that everyone can see, to find it easily, but for yourself as well, so that with weak eyesight you're able to read it legibly. And I had mentioned this before, those pets, the cats, the dogs that are always jumping around at your feet for food, or weaving between your feet because they love you, they will trip you. And I have 3 little dogs, and I have to constantly watch them as I'm walking through the kitchen, because they get so excited because they either think they're going to go for a walk, they're going to go outside, or they're going to get fed, or they just want attention. So we love them. Once again, these are just a few suggestions that I pulled together. It is in kind of a random order. A lot of the places that I go, these discussions go random, but I get a lot of good suggestions from all the senior homes that I've been to, and I find it very engaging, and they feel that it's informative. It's just a nice reminder to take a look at your home, not only on the inside, but on the outside. And it's funny, Chief Francis mentioned this, and it's in this handout here, is ask your family, friends, neighbors for assistance. Don't be bashful, because I can pretty much guarantee that everyone in this room has done something for a neighbor, whether they were older or not, and it's okay for them to ask for some help. So you'd be amazed at the help that you can get if you just ask somebody. Anyone have any questions or like to add anything to this?
I was a little confused about the step stools.
Yeah.
You said don't use a step stool, and then you went on to describe something else, which I don't understand.
Yep. Avoid using that little step stool that has a surface like this hot or this square on it that you would step on, and they're about this tall. You have no rails or anything to hold on to. they actually make a step stool that is a larger surface and there's one step between that original height step so that it's easy for somebody to manage. But it also has a rail system that's affixed to the stool itself. It has a nice wide base.
A rail system.
Yeah, it has a rail around it. So that way, if you do have an older home or a home that has higher cupboards, that you're going to need it on a regular basis, that you can drag it around, slide it in front of the place that you need it, step up, and you can have a rail to hold on to grab what you need to grab.
Oh, it's a rail on top then?
It's on the top of the step, yeah. It's a part of the whole thing. From the floor up, it's a rail system.
You're talking about a big step ladder? Like up to here?
Yeah, no, just a step stool. It's just a one step up. So I can show you a picture on the web after. So, yeah.
I had a client that had old dated stuff in the fridge and the cupboards. It's like, do you mind if I just run through it and see? I'll leave them out so you can look at them. And we went through and she goes, oh my, but she did, it's like, oh, that was just last year for some things. But, it's better than
Yeah.
bad stuff.
Yeah. And it is.
Familiar.
It's hard when you spend good, hard-earned money for something and you haven't used it yet.
Yeah.
It is hard to throw it in the garbage. But if you can just express the concern of what happens in that situation where food can go bad, can spoil, it really is not worth saving that 99 cents for that cake mix that's been in there for 5 or 6 years. So.
And how do you explain that to the older folks?
Well,
Who are set in their ways
if you're struggling with that directly to them, and you're working for TLC, you can come and you can talk with Courtney, Muhammad, or myself, anyone, for some suggestions. Alan Susi, the nurse case manager, Jean, look for advice. A lot of times it'll be a suggestion that may be put back that Alan or Jean may call another family member and just say, hey, look, Carol was in the home. She recognized that your mom had some, bad yogurts, and they're probably a year out of date. And she doesn't want to discard them. I'm concerned that she's potentially going to eat them, and I don't want to disrespect her by just throwing them away. Alan may make a call to the family and talk with one of their family members and say, this is the situation. And it eliminates you from being in that situation of making that bad call, or it's a good call, but a bad call on their part, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably like the best thing is just to reach out and let somebody know, document it in your notes, and call Alan or whoever the case manager that's involved. Okay? Well, I'm going to turn this over to Jean. Thank you very much. I will leave these copies here on the table so you can grab them afterwards. And thank you again, okay?
Thank you.
That was very interesting.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That was excellent. Okay, for our last presentation, it's on fall prevention. And afterwards, there are individual forms here to take for a test to finish it all up, and to give you your credits for the in-service. According to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, 1/3 of Americans age 65 plus fall each year. So something that we encounter quite frequently. Every 15 seconds, an older adult is treated in the emergency room for a fall, and every 29 minutes, an older adult dies from that fall. Falls are the leading cause of fatal injury and the most common cause of non-fatal trauma-related hospital admissions among older adults. Falls result in more than 2.4 million injuries treated in the emergency departments annually, including over 722,000 hospitalizations and more than 21,700 deaths. In 2011, the direct medical cost of fatal and non-fatal fall injuries totaled over $36.4 billion. and the financial toll for older adult falls is expected to increase as the population ages, and by 2020 it could reach 61.6 billion. Falls with or without injury cause a heavy quality of life impact. A growing number of older adults fear falling and as a result limit their social activities, and this can result in further future decline, depression, social isolation, and feeling of hopelessness. Okay, I'm sure we all have people who are concerned about falling that we're visiting, and so it's quite common that would be there. Falling is not an inevitable result of aging. Through evidence-based interventions, practical lifestyle adjustments, and community partnerships, the number of falls among seniors can be reduced substantially. What should we look for with falls? Has the person fallen more than once in the past year? Has the person fallen more than 2 or more times in the past 6 months? Does the person take 4 or more medications daily? Because multiple medications can cause dizziness, drowsiness, and balance problems. Having at least an annual review of the medications by a qualified professional may help remove some of these precipitating conditions. Does the person have a change in hearing? Because dizziness often occurs with the loss of hearing. Has the client or others around him noticed a change in vision? Seeing obstacles is the first step in avoiding a fall. Keeping a client's glasses clean and in good condition will matter. Does the person wear floppy footwear, too long a bathrobe, or other oversized clothing which will interfere with mobility? Does the person have trouble reaching overhead? Does the person have trouble picking up objects from the floor? Is it difficult for the person to get in and out of the bathtub or shower? And I am encountering a lot of the bathtub seats that are actually fitting inside the toilet. There are bathtub seats that have an extension that go over and actually is a lot safer for somebody that's unsteady, because then they can sit down and then put their legs in the bathtub. How well can the client transfer in and out of the chair independently? And oftentimes the person will have a walker in front of them and they'll grab for the walker instead of coming to the edge of the chair and pushing up. And they don't think about it. It's just automatic for them. So they need us to be reminding them of the steps for safety to be getting in and out of the chair. Can the person walk without holding onto a device or furniture or another person? These are all things to be looking at to evaluate the potential for falls. Okay, what can be done? Talking with the person about the history of falls and relating this information to the case manager. Observing the strengths and weaknesses of your clients and relating this again. Watching for occasions when the person is off balance and note the time, the activity, the location, and the effect of the client and reporting this. And I made a home visit this past week where I was able to see that the door to the bathroom is going in instead of coming out. And because of this, when the person goes in with their walker, the door is going right in front of the toilet. And they're having a hard time getting around to get to the toilet, which can be a very possible danger falling. The door can be changed so the door comes out and giving the person plenty of room to get their walker into the bathroom to sit down. Or in another situation where there was a bathroom and there was actually, the person has a walker but cannot fit, and then they has a little area to go into the toilet. They cannot fit that walker into the toilet. So they are holding on to the walls, letting go of the walker to get in to sit on the toilet. That person needs grab bars in that area. So that happened 2 days ago when I was going into homes, assessing, and we talked about it with the family, and they're going to work on it. But if you notice anything, please feel free to let us know so that we can go in to evaluate. Because part of our responsibilities when we're going in the home is to evaluate for safety. And if we see anything that can be used to increase the safety in the home, we will share that with them. As far as the toilet seat, with the shower chair going over the out of the bathtub so the person could sit down. If the physician gives a prescription for this for safety, it is often covered by Medicare. And some of the toilets have a toilet raiser seat that's plastic that goes inside the toilet. That is not as secure as actually having a commode over the toilet, because that can wiggle and it can go off. Having the commode, you've got the bars to hold on to, and it's not going to wiggle and fall off. So there's different things to be thinking about as far as the security. What are the realities of fall prevention? Falling is something normal that happens as we all get older. Most falls can be prevented, and we have the power to reduce the risk. If I limit my activities, I won't fall. Really making a living environment safer reduces the risk of falling. As long as I stay at home, I can avoid falling. Over half of all falls take place at home. Inspecting the home for fall risk, fixing simple but serious hazards such as clutter, throw rugs, poor lighting, modifying the home by adding grab bars, a second handrail on stairs, or applying non-slip paint on outdoor steps will all contribute to fall risk preventions. And on the stairs as going up, they get slippery with the dew and the water. They have excellent slip prevention pads that can be put on wooden stairs to help prevent that. Muscle strength and flexibility can't be regained. While we do lose muscle as we age, exercise can restore the strength and flexibility, and it's never too late to start an exercise program. Even if you've been a couch potato your whole life, becoming active will benefit in many ways, including protection for falls. And a lot of the senior citizens now have very active prevention programs for very limited cost if any of the clients can get out and enjoy doing something like that, as long as it's approved by the doctor. Taking medication doesn't increase the risk for falling. Really, taking any medication may increase a risk of falling. Medications affect people in so many ways and can sometimes alter our mobility negatively. I don't get my vision checked every year, they say. Well, vision is another key risk for falls. Aging is associated with some forms of vision loss that increase the risk of falling. People with vision problems are more than twice as likely to fall as those without visual impairment. Having eyes checked at least once a year and updating glasses is very important for safety. For those with low vision, there are programs and assistive devices that can help. One of the common eye disorders as people age is macular degeneration. And when that occurs, the central vision becomes very blurry. You would have peripheral vision, but not the central vision. And so it's difficult for them to see as they're walking in front of them at times. The Association for the Blind is an excellent resource that is free and available to anybody that needs help with improving the safety in the home. They have excellent lighting systems that they use. They have very top-grade magnifying glasses. They have computer magnifiers that can go on a computer. I strongly recommend that if anybody has any trouble reading, to use that. And one of our clients that we just recently met who has a macular degeneration, we talked about the Association for the Blind and coming in and assessing to help to provide safety needs too for them. Okay, they say, I can't report that I have witnessed another person's fall or that I'm aware I will hurt their feelings, and besides, it's none of my business. Really, what is known about a first person's fall is critical to keeping him safe and avoiding long-term injury that may change the very nature of the person's life. It's everyone's responsibility to help others avoid the consequences of falls. And the person might say, oh, I'm a tough old bird, I won't get hurt if I fall. An elder falls every 15 seconds and dies every 29 minutes from having fallen each day. The odds of being injured even slightly from a fall are astronomical. It remains best to avoid falling at all costs because the cost of falling will exceed the cost of prevention. And not only is the cost of falling, when you fall, you're really limited as far as your activities, and it can get very hard. Depression occurs. It's just increases your lifespan, and it really is very hard when it occurs. Okay, well, that's it for this program. Does anybody have any questions at all? Okay, I'm going to turn this monitor off, and I'm not sure quite how we go about it. Right.
Yeah, should have something, I don't know. Yep, I think you're good.
No.
No? Stop, it's right there.
Okay.
I am going to get some help. You see the stop button?
It said
right here.
start,
Okay.
stop.